Hey everybody, it's Amy with The Meninist. Today starts part 3 of our Ways Democrats, the game plan to take Trump out of office. More to come in just a minute. Well, we had so many parts of the plan, Papa, we had to add an extra part to this. It was originally supposed to be 3 parts total, but it's going to have to end up being 4. So this is the last part of all of the game plans or ways that the Democrats used to take Trump out of office. But before that, man, has it been a week.
It has been a crazy week.
I mean, politically, it has just been awful.
Yep.
Just
Good morning,
terrible.
everybody.
Good morning.
It's been a crazy week, and essentially we have done some research,
Uh-huh.
and it's just blowing us away.
It really
My
has.
Goodness.
It really has. But, you know, my heart goes out this week to our troops.
Oh, yeah.
And
definitely.
our military. We lost several Marines
Mm-hmm.
in Biden's exit from Afghanistan. And it's just been a tough week politically.
It's been a real tough week.
Yes.
And my heart goes out to the Gold Star families that, lost their loved ones. I mean, young kids, my goodness.
Yes, absolutely. Like babies.
Yeah.
Just babies. And I have a son who's pursuing the military, and so it definitely
It hits home.
it disheartens my heart
It
for
does.
sure. And so we pray for those families.
We do.
Yes.
Our hearts go out to those families that lost that paid the ultimate price. Lost
That's right.
A loved one, and our prayers are with you.
And, you know, I'm sorry, I don't approve of the way Biden snatched up our troops out of Afghanistan like that. I do agree that the war needed to end, but not like this.
Mm-hmm.
Not like this. And as we talk about these plans that the Democrats used, I'm wondering if the Republicans are going to rise up and do something about this, because it just wasn't right. It was wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's time to put an end to these wars.
Yes.
It's been just a battle. We need to concentrate on our country, put America first. And I know that's a bad word to some,
Uh-huh.
but we've got an open border, a southern border, and they're just leaking in like crazy.
I know.
Walking over, bringing in drugs. You got the cartel going nuts over there,
Uh-huh.
and now, Afghanistan.
Afghani.
Afghani
Yes.
people are coming in and they're
Uh-huh.
not being vetted. I mean, it's
Right.
crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But, I mean, I'm just disheartened on how it happened.
Yeah.
Because we didn't need to lose 18 Marines
No.
that way. We didn't need to. I'm glad the war in Afghanistan is over. That's not what I'm saying. I've been wanting that for a long time, but I don't think it was executed correctly. I really don't.
No, it wasn't. It was. I think Trump had a plan to
Mhm.
back out of there, and from what some of the generals are saying, and these are not the woke generals. These are
Right.
the generals that know their business. Is
Right.
That you first get the people out.
Right. Americans out.
Yeah.
You get
and
the Americans out.
civilians,
And then our equipment out.
then you get the equipment out, and then
And then
lastly you get the soldiers
That's
out.
right.
You back out in that way. You don't leave that equipment behind because, for God's sakes, even a fifth grader can figure that out.
Right. $90 million worth of equipment was left.
That's so much.
And the technology now is
Yeah.
of our
They
equipment's
got the
in the hands.
helicopters. They've got
Yes,
the tanks. They've
I
got
just-
the Humvees. They've got the night vision.
What are you doing?
I heard from Bongino that the night vision was something that we had in our favor because we could fight at night.
Right.
They didn't have that technology.
That's right.
Per se. And if they did, it was older technology. Well, now they've got it.
Well, I mean, and I understand leaving it because apparently the excuse was there wasn't time to get it out, but then blow it up. Get rid of it.
Get rid of it.
Yes,
Destroy it.
destroy it.
Exactly right.
I would rather destroy $90 million worth of technology than leave it in the hands of our enemy.
I agree.
So, anyways, but that's besides the point. That needs to be a later podcast because to me, the way that it happened is just unconscionable. And I really do feel like if the roles were reversed and Trump was in office and he did it this way, this would be yet another impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. So
Oh,
speaking
yeah,
of
no
that,
doubt.
we finished letter S the last podcast, and we are up to letter T, and this is the whole kids in cages where pictures were used actually of Obama's cages with illegal immigrants' children to then try to get to blame Trump for what Obama created. Obama was known as the deporter in chief, and he created cages at the border to separate families.
Right.
And you have to vet these families to make sure these children belong to the actual adults who are trying to bring them over the border.
Right.
And so they put them in these quote-unquote cages. And so Obama created them. The deporter in chief is what his nickname was. And the Democrats try to blame Trump for it.
And by the way, we have compiled a list of incidences and accusations of the Democrats trying to remove Trump from the presidency.
That's right.
Starting in 2016. So Amy's right now on number...
We're on letter T.
Letter T. So we're
Letter
going down
T.
this list.
We're going down the alphabet.
It's amazing.
That's right.
The money that was spent. And
That's right.
the attempts to remove the sitting president.
Well, again, the attempts are important because they're what bring us to the Hail Mary at the end.
Right.
The desperation is ensuing at this point.
Right. It's
and
swelling.
so they're
Yep.
trying, yes. And so you have to go through all these things in order to understand the biggest game plan.
I mean, it was just an attack, an onslaught attack
That's
on,
right.
on these attempts to get him removed out of the White House.
But interesting, when Biden was elected, do you remember some conservative journalists went to the border and sure enough, there are kids still in cages. Matter of fact, there were more kids in cages under the new Biden administration than when Trump was in office. And so the media picked up the rug and swept that under real quick because the hypocrisy was real and they couldn't, there was nothing they could do to defend it.
Right. And I think it was Ted Cruz who took a camera crew.
Yes, that is correct.
And they initially said, hey, you can't photograph this.
Right. And it's part of our policy that the children have to be vetted to protect them from child trafficking. So Trump wasn't doing anything illegal by separating the children from the parents.
Right.
Or quote unquote parents, the adults.
Because, there's a ton of that going on.
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother podcast. We will get into child trafficking because that's a big problem. Big problem. And I think the Democrats are deep rooted in it.
No doubt.
Yes.
No doubt.
So so that brings us to Plan U, a big one, the Mueller report.
Okay.
And that's on you.
That's my cue.
Yes, that's
All
your
right.
cue. Tell us all about the Mueller report because this was a big way. And this takes up multiple letters, by the way.
Okay. The Mueller report was the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, it's called Russiagate.
That's right.
So in 2000, what the report was, the accusation was in 2016 that Trump and his campaign colluded with the Russians to disturb the 2016 election.
Yes.
So on May 9th, 2017, Trump fires Comey.
Yes.
And Comey, of course, was the head of the FBI at the time.
Right.
And he was linking or attempting to link the Trump campaign and his associates to Russia. So that whole procedure was called Crossfire Hurricane.
Okay.
It was established in July of 2016.
Okay.
So apparently what they were saying in the report that May of 2016, prior to the presidential election,
Uh-huh.
that Trump and his campaign received suggestions
Uh-huh.
from Russia.
So this plan was put in place before he was even elected.
Correct.
Okay.
This is basically spying on, and remember we talked about it
Yes.
earlier when Trump made the accusation that his towers were being
That's right.
wiretapped.
Yes.
Well, this is part of that.
Okay.
Okay. So the way Mueller went ahead and brought his report together and basically compiled all this information, he obtained thousands of emails somehow through the Trump campaign. He interviewed dozens of people. 19 lawyers were involved, 40 FBI agents, 2,800 subpoenas, and 500 witnesses. That is what compiled the Mueller report,
Okay.
or Russiagate.
That's incredible.
Right. So in March 25th, and this is just a very quick synopsis. On March
Okay.
25th, now William Barr is head of Department of Justice, and Barr concludes that a principal conclusion was that, and it was done in two parts.
Right.
So Barr now says that Russia did interfere
Mm-hmm.
in one way or another. Now, the reason why he's saying that is because Russia, they believe, took out some advertisements. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Through Facebook and YouTube
Ah.
and videos that essentially was favoring Trump over Hillary Clinton at the time.
Okay. Okay. That's what they were saying.
Right.
Okay.
So that's part number one, that Russia
Okay.
did interfere in that manner, that they used social media to do it.
Through our American social media company.
Correct,
So that
correct.
means that our American social media,
Which, by the way, these companies are global.
true, but they're owned by an American
Correct.
and founded by an American.
Correct.
So that means that Facebook allowed Russia to create these ads and run them.
Correct.
And Russia probably paid. You have to pay these companies to run these ads.
Right.
Okay.
And I would say that the epicenter to that was when, if you remember, Weiner. Remember Weiner? Remember that guy?
How can you forget that guy?
All right. His wife used
Uh-huh.
to work for Hillary,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So evidently, a lot of these emails that supposedly Hillary was bit washing
Uh-huh.
and
Bleaching.
and all that good stuff
Yes.
wound up on his computer.
Yes.
Right before the election.
Yes,
And
I remember that.
And that was something that, and then he starts calling her, crooked Hillary.
Uh-huh.
And the rest is history.
That's right.
So in two parts, part number one, Russia interferes
Uh-huh.
with the election.
Right.
And part number two, Trump's obstruction of justice. So the recusal of Suches
Uh-huh.
was part of that, and also the firing of Comey.
Okay.
So those are the things that Mueller put together. However, the conclusion was that they didn't have enough data or enough evidence to go ahead and convict Trump of
Okay.
these accusations.
That's right.
So a special counsel was put together by the Department of Justice, and then Barr's the one that gave the initial conclusion that Trump there wasn't enough evidence.
Right.
Okay?
Right. That's right.
So that's essentially it in a nutshell.
Didn't it allegedly come out too that actually the truth was that Facebook and Twitter and these big companies actually put forth a whole lot of money towards Clinton's campaign versus Trump's campaign?
Yes.
Yes. So I know in these investigations, it was almost like everything that they were accusing Trump within the Mueller report actually pointed towards the Democrats
Correct.
when the investigations were over.
Correct.
And so they were like, oh, we got to throw out the investigation real fast.
Right.
Yeah, it happened during Mueller's testimony before
Well,
Congress.
it was swept under the rug.
Yes.
Yeah.
You mean they sweep things under the rug?
They swept under the rug. So the abridged version of Mueller's report, intended for those who did not have the time to read the 500 pages. which
Right.
This thing was huge. The version was basically they wanted to get him for obstruction of justice. And that's where
Yes.
essentially that first attempt to impeach him came
Right.
from.
That's right.
That he obstructed on the 2016 campaign.
Yes.
And they went ahead and got a hold of the general. What was his name?
Didn't it come out that allegedly Zuckerberg of Facebook put way more into Hillary's campaign than was numerically allowed? Like you can only put in so much. I think I remember this. I need to look it up. But it came out through all these investigations in the Mueller report.
I think so.
Yes,
I
that
remember
not only-
something to that effect.
Yes,
Right.
that not only did he fund Hillary's campaign, but he paid too much. There were several companies and celebrities that got caught paying too much into Hillary's campaign.
Right.
You're only allowed to. And it came out through these investigations with the Mueller report.
Well, hence Michael Flynn comes in, and apparently he had connections to the Russians.
Yes.
And at that point in time, Trump fired the director, James Comey,
That's right.
because Comey had something to do with the dossier.
Right,
and
right.
putting that dossier together,
That's right.
which proved to be a false dossier. So it was actually made up.
Well,
and
he gave the go. He allowed it to happen.
He let it to happen.
Yes.
Through the FISA courts.
That's right. That's right.
So the dossier was showing things, essentially sexual favors by
Right.
the Russians on Trump while
Yeah.
he was over there, and
That's
all
right.
these different. And I mean, it got pretty nasty as
Uh-huh.
far as the accusations.
Right.
And so initially, you're right, because
Uh-huh.
what happens is Hillary had ties to Russia,
That's right.
major ties.
Yes, and so do the Bidens,
And so did
allegedly.
the Bidens, exactly
Through
right.
Hunter. Yes, and it's funny because we talked about last week, it feels like the Democrats look at their own
Mhm.
trash, and that's what they use to pinpoint trash on Trump, because it turns out everything that happens that they accuse Trump of, they've actually been guilty of,
Correct. So
which is crazy to
right,
me.
and that cost us millions
Millions.
of dollars.
Millions.
You know, this
Taxpayer.
and it went on and
Yes,
on
it did.
and on. And here's my whole thing about this is that this man is a sitting president.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to deal with this
Yes.
because let's face it, back in 2016, 63 million people voted for him.
Right. That's right.
And we sent him to Washington, D.C., into the Oval Office to run this country.
Right.
And he's got to deal with all this crap.
That's right. And it's just one attack after another.
One
attack,
attack
after another.
And then you got the media involved.
That's
and this
right.
guy can't,
And the big tech.
and the big tech,
That's right.
and then the Democrats on top of that, and
That's
one
right.
investigation after another,
That's
and then
right.
his family. It's like, when do you have time to run a nation,
Right,
run a
right.
country,
Right.
you know? And even through all that, he ran it pretty damn well.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. We're going to talk about that. But within the Mueller report had several parts which you covered, and that covered a couple of our letters. So I appreciate you doing that. You did a good job, Pop. But within that, Plan W kind of stuck in between the Mueller report, because during the Mueller report and its findings, they tried other ways to impeach him while the Mueller report was going on. And one of those, do you remember the Squad?
Yes.
AOC and Ilhan Omar, they were very much anti-American at the time, and Trump made a statement in one of his rallies that or press releases, I can't remember, where he said, "If you don't like it here, go home."
Ooh, I remember that.
No, it was a tweet. He tweeted it.
Right.
If you don't like it here, go home. Well, they drew up impeachment papers for that. That was another set of impeachment papers.
Oh, my.
But it turns out he has the First Amendment right, and he could say what he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
And so the impeachment papers were tore up. So that was in between the Mueller investigation, if you remember that happening.
Apparently, they didn't go, did they? They stayed.
They stayed. They stayed. I wonder why. Maybe because America is the best country ever, and these people who say they want to go home, a bunch of them said they wanted to leave the country if Trump got elected, and
Do you
they're
remember
still
that?
here.
Yeah.
Yes, and they're still here.
The
Allegedly, like Whoopi Goldberg said it.
Yeah,
a
Whoopi
bunch
said
of
it,
a
right.
bunch of celebrities said it, and yep, oh, here they are.
Yep.
Earning money in the United States. Yes. Okay. So that took up several of our letters, and so now we are in Plan Z. So we are finally sort of ending the alphabet, and this is when Epstein was captured. He was captured and he was jailed because he is a known predator of children and used allegedly his island to traffic children through his longtime girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell.
I remember
And
that one, yeah.
They tried to tie Trump to him by saying that Trump traveled with him to the island. But then, so then this is what's funny. So then that allowed somebody to pull up Epstein's flight log
Right.
to see if Trump was on it. And not only was Trump on it, but guess who was on it 62 times?
Billy Boy.
Billy Boy. And then when they went to go raid his, this is my favorite. I'm sorry, this is hysterical and kind of weird and weird at the same time. All right, so they go raid Epstein's island after he's captured, and guess what they find? A painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress. They find a painting in Epstein's house of Bill Clinton in high heels and a blue dress sitting in a chair sideways.
Ooh.
Yes, which made everybody go, what? Right? It's just weird. Like, I'm not sure how their relationship went, but I can have guesses, and it's just strange.
You know, it's one thing to have the painting. It's another thing to hang it up.
Well, yeah, exactly. Where everybody can see it. But on the flat log are all of these celebrities, like
Yeah.
allegedly Tom Hanks and Chrissy Teigen and her husband and all these celebrities. And the media took that rug real quick and picked it up. And they like swept that list under that rug so fast they couldn't even stand it. But Bill Clinton was on there 62 times.
Right, and then he hung himself.
And then he hung himself.
Hung himself.
He hung himself with a paper towel sheet
off his bed. So you have to really force
Okay.
yourself to hang yourself off your bedpost.
But the sheet's made out of paper towels.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. He hung
Sure.
himself.
Yeah, all right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So anyway, so they ended up arresting Ghislaine Maxwell, and I haven't heard much out of
No,
that.
that's been
That's
she's
been mighty
probably-
quiet.
She's probably on an island somewhere.
She probably is stuck somewhere and kept
New
very.
identity.
Yes.
Listen, honey, we'll take care of you.
Yes.
Just don't say a word.
Don't say nothing.
And let us have the black book.
That's right.
Thank you
Don't
very
say
much.
nothing. Yep, because she's mighty quiet. Nobody's interviewed her. You mean to tell me there's no recordings of her spilling her guts? There's
Nothing.
no. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But anyway, so that takes us to
But wait a minute. Going back to Epstein
right.
and coming to Trump's defense. Didn't
Okay.
he kick him out of Mar-a-Lago?
Yes, he did.
I thought so.
Yes, he
There was
did.
something funky going on.
Yes, he had some bad vibes about him.
Yeah.
And they never said why he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago, but there is reports and records of him kicking him out of Trump kicking Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago.
Right. And this is before he was president.
This is before he was president.
right. So
But the media tried to tie him and Epstein, so they pull up the flight logs, and they were like, put away the flight logs.
yeah. Yeah.
Because the flight logs implicated a whole bunch of people who are known Democrats. So anyways, so that happened. And then I don't know if you remember this, but when Trump announced that he was running for 2020, California tried to kick him off the ballot.
Oh, I don't remember that.
That was Plan AA. Yes, you could Google it. California decided they were just going to take him off the ballot. So that way the state couldn't vote for him for 2020. And that didn't work. It came and flittered in the media for a second and then gone.
Wow.
But could you imagine state being bold enough to just not put him on the ballot? That's what they said. They were just going to keep him off the ballot. But no, that's against voter rules, and you have to have the candidate on the ballot. So that was gone. But it's interesting that they tried to kick him off the ballot. And now in the symposium, Mike Lindell showed that California actually voted for Trump. By a narrow margin, but by a margin. Okay, so then that gets us into... let's see. I need my notes here. Let's see. They tried to dox Trump supporters. This was a big one. So they tried, you know what doxing means?
No.
Okay, doxing is a technology term where they try to out your address and phone number so that people who are against you can come to your house and cause havoc. They try to release your personal information.
Wow.
So
that's brutal.
it is pretty brutal. And they did dox a couple of Trump supporters, and Antifa, like, people showed up at their house and was nasty. And then it came out that they were doxed by Democrats, and then they stopped doxing because you're not allowed to do that. That's actually illegal.
They did that to Tucker.
They did it to Tucker, yes.
Yep. Okay, I remember.
Twice. They did it to him twice.
Yeah.
And they did it to a couple of our Republican congressmen, too. And you can't do that. It's illegal. That's like a privacy invasion, and you
Wow.
can't do that. So so that happened. This is, again, all during his presidency. And then we get into the shutting down of conservatives on social media.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes, that was a
'Cause now
big
you're
one.
taking the voice away.
That's right.
First Amendment is gone.
So our sitting president was actually omitted from social media by social media companies.
Yep.
But the Taliban currently are able to post on Twitter. And their Twitter has not been taken down. But our sitting president at the time, his Twitter was taken down.
That is insane.
But they took down a bunch of conservatives, and they continue to. I mean, it seems like daily another one is taken off permanently.
That is insane.
Permanently. And I know for us, we post this podcast to YouTube, and we've been taken down twice.
Right.
So, I mean, it's actively trying to silence the voice of conservatives. And it is vitally important that we are able to maintain our First Amendment right. And so now the conflict is, at the time, there was a rule and legislation that protected social media companies, saying that they were not a publisher. But now they are looked at as a publisher. And so now conservative and Republican politicians are trying to get that changed through the courts, where now social media companies are actively publishing.
Mm-hmm.
And that way they cannot silence conservatives anymore. But what has happened are websites and social media platforms like Getter and Rumble, who have risen up and are very successful in allowing conservatives to have a free platform.
Right.
Because they're not being kicked off.
Right.
And so, but I mean, it's taken high profile conservatives and politicians to be kicked off for us to realize where we made a mistake, and that is we trusted them
Mm-hmm.
for our free voice.
Well-
and now we're realizing real quick you can't.
And it's a good thing that conservatives grew a pair,
That's right.
and we were able to have the backing
Yes.
and the know-how to create platforms for such as Getter.
Yes.
Parler attempted, but
Yes.
it got kicked out. It got
Right.
knocked down. But you've got alternatives now from these woke companies
Uh-huh.
that are taking down the conservative voice.
That's right.
So, the Rumbles of the world and the Getters are now, and my understanding is people are joining these platforms, like conservative people are joining these platforms
Oh, it's
in the millions.
insane.
Yeah.
In the millions. Multi-millions.
Thank you,
Yes.
guys.
Thank you, Getter. Thank you, Rumble. Thank you to those who are just putting their stuff out on the internet with their own websites.
That's right.
President Trump did that. He
Yep.
created his own website, and he puts out his daily news blast on his own website, so he can't get kicked
Kudos
off.
to Mike Lindell
Yes.
with Frank's speech.
Yes, right.
He's got a platform that he can speak now.
That's right.
You've got Congressman Getz
Yeah.
that's got his own podcast.
Yes,
You've got Huckabee that's got
That's
his own
right.
a lot of conservative voices are now rising up.
that's right.
So, you can't take us down.
That's right. You can't. We're just going to speak louder and find a different way.
That's
And
right.
that's what we've been doing. So they did. They actively removed our sitting president while he was still in office from social media.
Like you said, while the Taliban is still able to Twitter.
While the
and
Taliban can still tweet
It's a
on Twitter.
shame.
Yes.
shame on you.
It's absolutely incredible.
Shame on you.
I can't even wrap my head around it. The Taliban has a First Amendment right, and they're not even living here. But our
That's right.
sitting president did not. All right, so that was the next plan, and now we're getting into. Let's see. The Democrats wanted to change the House rules on impeachment as needed.
Mm.
So where there's in order to draft articles of impeachment, there's a set of rules for the House of Representatives and the Senate, and now all of a sudden they want to change the rules. And the Democrats want to be like, nah, when we draft articles of impeachment, we're going to move the goalpost as we do it, and you can't do that. That's like fundamental to our nation's history. So those rules, that opportunity for those rules got taken out real quick. All right. So then the next one is, let's see. Impeach Trump for not informing the leak-prone Democrats before taking out the ISIS leader and his successor. So if you remember, Trump took out, oh gosh, he had a really long name. I don't remember his name because it was really long. But he sent in the military to the Middle Eastern country, and he shot one of the main ISIS leaders. Do you remember that?
I do.
Okay, al-Baghdad or something like that. I don't know, very long name. And the Democrats actually drafted articles of impeachment to impeach him because he didn't ask them first. But as it turned out, you don't have to ask the Democrats to take out a leader of ISIS.
Well, if that leader of ISIS is a threat to the country,
He
it's his
was.
responsibility
That's right.
as a sitting
But
president.
the Democrats tried to impeach him for it.
Right.
But I don't see no articles of impeachment when Obama took out Biden. I mean, Obama took out bin Laden.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
As a matter of fact, the whole nation, we celebrated when Obama took out bin Laden.
Right. Yeah.
But then Trump takes out al-Baghdadi. I'm saying his name wrong. And the Democrats create articles of impeachment because because Trump didn't ask them first.
Wow.
But there's a level of intelligence. And when you're taking out a known killer, right, an ISIS leader, you can't release that information before it happens because then it can be leaked. So you as the president get to make that call, and that's you're right. You're justified and righteous for doing that. And so that got thrown out, those impeachment articles. But every time you create articles of impeachment, it costs money and it takes time. And
what does it say about impeachment?
Right. It cheapens the word.
It cheapens the word, right. So, impeachment was made by our framers and forefathers. It was developed to be able to remove a sitting president that goes woke.
That's right. That goes, yes.
For
that
whatever
goes off
reason,
the cuff.
he goes woke.
Right.
Because you never know.
Well, he goes against the U.S. Constitution somehow.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. None of these are unconstitutional.
Right. So, when we say woke, we mean the guy, he's an implant. Who the heck knows?
Right. That's right.
I mean,
treasonous, something like that. Yes. But it
sure sounds like somebody I know, but.
But
you know what I'm talking about.
We're up to 25.
It cheapens it. It does cheapen it.
Yeah, we're up to over 25 times they've tried to impeach him.
Right.
And the desperation, they're impeaching him for things that they know he's allowed to do. The desperation is building.
It is.
Okay? And so then that leads us to the perfect phone call, which got him impeached for the second time.
Yes.
The perfect phone call.
That's another whole 30 minutes.
Yes.
Because now you got Hunter Biden. And you've got the whole Ukraine situation.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah, but it was a perfect phone call.
Yes, it was. And it turns out that after they transcribed it and they read it and they replayed the phone call, that Trump actually did nothing wrong.
Right.
But the House voted to impeach him anyway.
Right. And I think we talked about it in the previous podcast.
And why didn't he get impeached? Like overall? Because the House impeached him, but the Senate did not.
Well, the Senate knew that essentially he didn't do anything wrong.
But in order for a president to be impeached and taken out of office, both houses.
Correct. There's got to be a certain amount of votes.
The House and the Senate.
A certain amount of votes out of the Senate.
Right.
And it depends on how it's swayed.
Right. But at the time, the Senate was majority Republican.
Right.
So Trump had the votes not to be impeached.
And I think the same thing happened to Clinton, where he was impeached by Congress, but the Senate was in his favor, and they voted not to impeach him. He was impeached.
That's right.
Because the articles were fulfilled, everybody signed on the dotted line. They impeached him, but then it goes into the Senate for the final, like they did with Nixon.
But what I like about this second impeachment, we got to see which Republican senators voted for the impeachment. So now we know who to get out of office.
Correct, because you get all the woke senators and all the rhinos, right?
And a good thing that happened was the Senate Majority Leader was actually replaced. The Republican Senate Majority Leader was actually replaced. Help me out. She's the daughter of somebody who ran for president. What is her name? Oh, it just slipped my mind.
Yeah, I know.
You know who
Liz
I'm talking
Cheney?
about? Liz Cheney, thank you, was removed as the Senate Majority Leader for the Republicans because she voted for Trump's impeachment.
Yeah, she's
Remember
gone.
that?
Yeah.
So it did reveal some truths. And
Right.
that's what I like about some of these things, because what might look at as evil actually turns out to reveal the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And we got to take out a rhino from her position.
And she likes Afghanistan.
Yes.
She likes troops.
Well, gee, I wonder why.
In Afghanistan. Well, it's a way to make cash.
Uh-huh.
You can cash in on that deal.
Yes. I would say allegedly she's probably bought and paid for.
Yeah.
Probably multiple times over.
I agree with you.
And so now that did not work, and now we're up to the coronavirus release. I want you to show that picture.
All right. So let me
Tell
explain.
us about this
Let me
picture.
explain the picture. The picture is showing China is now signing the trade deal
Yes.
with, and if you notice at this picture, you're going to see Trump with.
President Xi, right?
No, that's an interesting point. President Xi never made it. He sends a delegate over there to sign the agreement.
Interesting.
But you know the story about a picture telling 1,000 words.
Yes.
Well, here you go. You got Trump signing the agreement. It's
And what is the agreement?
It's basically saying in manufacturing, anything that comes into the United States now has got a tariff to it. It's got a tax to it.
Okay.
That they're going to have to pay.
Yes.
And
Because previously they were sending their goods over and we were sending our goods over and we were paying taxes, but they were not.
correct.
Okay.
So now Trump's saying, wait a minute, that's unfair. Everything that comes across our border, now you're going to have to pay a tax.
Okay.
And I want to say it's 28% of whatever
Okay.
the value is coming across.
So then that would bring us money into our country.
Right. In my opinion,
Uh-huh.
if you notice this picture, Trump has got a big grin on his face.
Yes.
But the Chinese delegate does not.
Okay.
They are not happy about this.
Now,
Obviously, because they're going to have to pay out.
that's right. And they want to be a superpower.
Right. And there's a lot of people tied to the CCP.
That's
that
right.
are in
Oh, gosh.
politics in this country.
Boy, you ain't kidding.
And Mitch McConnell and his family. I mean, it goes on and on. And Dominion voting machines.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's tied to the CCP.
Yes.
And essentially, Trump just put the screws to him.
Okay. Will you put us back up on screen?
Sure.
What does the CCP stand for those who are listening for the first time and don't know?
The Chinese Communist Party.
That's right. And the Chinese Communist Party are trying to essentially become a superpower, the superpower,
Correct.
the number one superpower.
Right.
And they put in a 100-year plan that started in the 1950s to take over the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And we are in 2021, so we're about 30 years away. They are very slow. They're very patient. They are very structured, and they're very methodical to take over our country. Well, why was the picture that Pop just pulled up important? Because that trade agreement pissed them off. Pardon my French.
Pissed
But
a
it
lot
did.
of people off.
Because it was a setback to their 100-year plan. Don't believe me? Look it up. Look it
Yeah.
up. CCP, 100-year plan, take over the United States. Look it up.
Right.
And because of that, something large had to be leashed on the United States / the world.
Well,
How
Amy, we just went
dare you
we
try
we
to...
just went through how many attempts?
Let's see.
Pages. You got
pages.
several pages there.
Well, we have all the letters of the alphabet, plus I covered
Right.
8 more.
So we have done 2 podcasts showing you the attempts.
That's right.
And now we're down to the wire.
We need a Hail Mary. We need something to take him out.
That's right.
What could it be? Oh, I know. A funded virus by Dr. Fauci, created in a lab. By the way, that has all been exposed. So I'm not. I will say allegedly, but that has all been exposed by the media, by our left-wing media, surprisingly.
Right.
That takes out our economy.
Yep.
Because what was the number one factor driving Trump to re-election in 2020?
The economy.
The economy.
We had a screaming economy.
We had to take it out.
You had the Trump tax cuts. You had basically the economy screaming,
That's right.
which even today is residual from what Trump has done. I mean, and mind you, it is a house of cards.
That's right.
I mean, this thing can come falling down.
That's
any day.
right.
But nonetheless, he really gave the middle class family
Uh-huh.
a break
Yes.
on being able to open up businesses,
Yes.
raise your children,
Right.
and you know, we had 2019 was a good year.
Well, even more. Yes, you're right. But even more so, he was pro-America. He was put America first, and that is the opposite plan
Thank
for
you,
the
Amy.
CCP.
Thank you.
The CCP cannot have us pro-America. They cannot take over America if we're pro-America. So
That's right.
therefore, they needed a plan. They needed the last final hoorah to get Trump out of office.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest way to get him out of office is to ruin our economy. Well, what ruined our economy more than anything else in U.S. history that happened in the last 18 months?
The pandemic.
The pandemic. And where was the pandemic created? Wuhan, China.
Mhm.
And who funded it?
WHO, CCP, you name it.
And Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Fauci, yeah.
And Dr. Fauci. And so when you start putting the plans together, what ultimately took Trump out of office? There were two things that took Trump out of office. One, the coronavirus and the destruction of our economy. And two, the rigging of our election. Those two things successfully took him out. None of these other plans worked.
Correct.
They were tried, they were pushed, they were thrown, and none of them worked. So what was the final hoorah that took him out?
So the scheme was to develop a virus
Yes,
that can jump from animal to humans.
which was successfully funded and done.
Correct. And then leak it
It's called gain of function.
into the United States, which, by the way, if you recall, you had flights that were canceled
Yes,
into Wuhan,
right?
but were not canceled out of Wuhan.
Correct. That's how it got here.
Right. And so, Italy had it was a global pandemic.
That's right.
That was leashed out onto the global population,
Yes,
killing hundreds of thousands.
yes. And interesting, it takes out mainly elderly, and it takes out mainly people with severe health issues. So it's like the weakest part of the population.
Correct.
Well, do you know who the CCP in their own country tries to take out?
The elderly.
The weakest part of their population. They believe they're a
It's the
burden.
survival of the fittest.
That's
thing.
right. They believe they're
Very
a burden.
humanistic.
So it would make sense that that's who's targeted in this virus that was created over there.
Nefarious and evil.
It really is
It's just-
nefarious
it's
and evil.
demonic. Yeah.
It is. But I know somebody who's greater.
Oh yeah. Come on.
I know
We could take a little time to preach here.
I know somebody who's greater.
Greater is He
That's
that
right.
is in me.
Than he who is of the world.
That's right.
That's right.
And that's where we put our hope in.
That's right. That's all we can put our
Jesus
hope
Christ.
in. That's all we can put our hope
That's
in.
right.
And so what was meant for evil, the Bible says, will be used for good.
That's right.
And although it seems like very evil and nefarious and demonic times, God is still sovereign. He's still the king. He's still the ruler of the earth. He's
is.
still the Lord. And he's got a plan. And it's so hard to trust that plan because all you can see is the evil. But I really do feel that the plan is in place and God is in control.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a reason all of this stuff had to happen. Because think about it. We would not know the nefariousness of people in our government if this hadn't happened.
And Mike Lindell talks about that. He says that was a miracle because what happened was you had such a mass volume of voters voting
Yes.
on November 3rd that
Right.
it literally broke the algorithms to a lot of these machines that were counting.
That's right.
And here we go.
And by the
A
machine,
lot of things were exposed.
and the machines have been used for a while,
they were.
and they were not exposed in the past
Correct.
because the algorithms weren't broken.
Correct.
So the algorithms had to be broken for us to see how they function and
Right.
how Biden was able to win.
and 2020 is perfect vision.
But and
Right.
we've said this, yes, and we've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't want to hear anything about 2022 until 2020 is taken care of. 2020
can't.
has not been taken care
You
of.
cannot. You've got to deal with November 3rd, the Wuhan virus, and what happened January the 6th
And I find it very interesting.
before you move on.
I find it very interesting that these audits are taking place and results are happening, and boom, we pull out of Afghanistan, rushed, hurriedly.
Mm-hmm.
Shiny object over here, shiny
come
object
on.
over here. Don't look over here, shiny object over here.
You're right, because I remember for the past several weeks, I don't care what news feed you're listening to, that whole election process, which was very hot
That's
several
right.
weeks before,
That's right.
has gone silent.
Yes, and the coronavirus all of a sudden is quiet. It's all Afghanistan, because we needed something to put a shiny object over here.
Hey.
That's my opinion.
Look over here,
Over
people.
here,
Look
don't look
over
over here.
here. We don't want to look over here.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't look over there. Look
So
over here.
we yanked them out
Wow. Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
that would be a nice media talking point for a while.
Well, very interesting.
Yes. So that concludes that concludes this is our opinion,
Mm-hmm.
our thoughts on how Trump was taken out of office unjustifiably, in my opinion. And that leads us up to modern day political news, because you have to understand the process
Correct.
to
And the attempts.
and the desperation to understand the big plan.
So for them to, we just did 2 podcasts on essentially removing this man
Mhm.
as president. They must have had one heck of an agenda
Yes.
in place. Obama, Hillary, now Biden.
Yes.
And you can see a lot of this stuff starting to manifest,
Right.
you know? And whistleblowers, God bless whistleblowers.
Yes.
Because they're coming out and they're essentially saying things. Some of it's hard to swallow,
Yes, it is.
but it's being exposed.
Yes. Yes.
It's being exposed.
All right. Well, until next week, Pop, we're going to continue to pray for those affected in Louisiana by the latest hurricane. I forgot
Correct,
to mention
yes.
that in the beginning,
Pray-
but we've
pray
got
for
that
those.
going on.
Right.
And unfortunately, I've heard very little coverage on the
Yeah.
media about that hurricane. But I know there's been a lot of damage and some people who have been hurt. So we lift up Louisiana and the rest of the states that were affected by the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been worse, so thank God it wasn't. But there has been some damage happen. We lift up those who are sick,
Yes.
and have
God
lost
bless
loved
you.
ones to this awful
pray-
Chinese
We
virus.
pray for your healing.
Yes, that's right. And we also pray for the families of the people who were killed in Afghanistan this last week.
Oh, yes, yes.
And we
yes.
lift you up. We lift you up in prayer. We really do. Our hearts go out to you.
Yes.
We thank your family members for their service.
Mm-hmm.
The ultimate sacrifice.
The ultimate.
Yes. And with that, until next week.
God bless America. We
yes,
love you.
we love you. Be blessed. Have a
Bye
good
now.
day. Bye.